Hello, and a warm welcome to the Irish Angle. Thanks for joining us. And before I start, I just want to say a big thank you to those who liked and subscribed to our channel last week on YouTube. Big help, really appreciate it, and keep up the good work. Now, I've Emma Nagel, Johnny Ward, we're back, three of us here to have a look back on the Grand National meeting at Aintree. It was some week. The Grand National itself, Emma, extraordinary is the only word I can describe it with.
Yeah, definitely extraordinary race, extraordinary result. A really, I suppose, high class renewal of the national. Loads of grade one performers in there, and kind of like you mentioned in your blog, for Willie Mullins to have six runners and to have the first five jump in the last fence, looked like he was going to have the first five home at one stage. Like it's just incredible, and the result itself, Willie, I suppose, is always kind of poignant, and his winning interview is always worth listening to. But I've never seen him really get emotional after winning a race, and it kind of just showed what the Grand National still means, I suppose, to connections. And he said it's so much of his career having his son riding the Grand National winner for him, and obviously a great story around the owners of the horse as well. So a brilliant result all around, I suppose. A big-ish price winner, around 25 to 1, maybe a little bit bigger, but definitely a horse who wasn't hiding in plain sight either. Like he was Tiesti's winner, Bobby Joe Chase winner. He kind of danced plenty of dances this year, and came out on top of the Grand National as well. And just brilliant to see, I suppose. Patrick, he said he got the perfect spin around and a race. I think he wrote beforehand how he was reading about and watching videos of this race all the way through his childhood. So yeah, brilliant result.
Yeah, incredible this Johnny as well, isn't it? Willie Mullins, he's the third Irishman to jock up his son to win the Grand National on one of his horses after. Ted Walsh did it with Ruby, and Tommy Carberry did it with Bobby Joe all those years ago, and Paul Carberry. Astonishing stuff from Willie, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and I suppose even quietly, then you have a Grade Two race in Ireland yesterday over hurdles, and he has the first five home. So from that to a handicap chase, it really is extraordinary. To think that imagine what he was going through, and an Aintree can be a bit of a whirlwind of emotions and partying and running the show, and you imagine everything that's gone on in his mind, and then he looks at the last as they're coming over an Aintree, and he's five horses in with a chance. So like if you've backed a horse in the national and he's in with a chance jump at the last, which is often rare for a lot of us, it's a bit of a buzz. But can you imagine having five horses with the chance, but you actually train them, and then your son is on one of them, and he's the horse that ends up winning? So I'm not surprised he was crying, actually, to be honest, afterwards, because all of that must have been a hell of a lot to take in. I was talking to him at Downpatrick on Monday, and was it Sunday actually, and it was great to see Jackie Mullins there, because she owned a runner in the bumper, in the Hunter's Chase rather, and I thought it was lovely that she was, I think, the first person to give Patrick a big hug, because she's kind of she's the lesser seen parent of the two, obviously, but she's such a massive role in Close Sutton, a real lady, and I'd say she got an enormous kick out of that, and Patrick mentioned her afterwards as well. And then to have the emotion shown by Willie, I think, was almost like the Hollywood aspect of the whole day, because it just shows that people are probably bored of Willie Mullins winning all these races, and they're just used to it. But it hasn't changed to him, and winning the national with your son on board was incredible. And he was absolutely ignored in the betting as well, 33 to 1, which was mad stuff. But it is like somebody was saying to me in the press room in Mallow yesterday, like what are the trainers in Britain doing? And somebody else responded, well, what are the other trainers in Ireland doing? And as your blog says, just say just send your horse to Willie Mullins. It's an extraordinary state of affairs that one trainer would have the first five home in a Grade Two hurdle race in Ireland at one of the top tracks on a Sunday, a day after having almost the first five home in the national in Britain. So yeah, it was an extraordinary stuff. But just on the Patrick aspect of the story, I've always found Patrick to be an absolute gentleman, like really really nice, humble guy. He would have, if you praise him for his writing ability, which is well up there, he's a really good writer. He'll say something like, "People often praise me for my writing ability, not so much my riding ability." And I think there's a slight maybe feeling there that he's broken. He's one of what he's, I suppose, ended old records, and he's done all of the things that he's done. But people probably think there's a silver spoon aspect to it, and that he was privileged to ride all these horses. But I think maybe a day like Saturday would show how good a rider he is. And as Tom Weeks pointed out, to me yesterday when we were doing a preview for before Mallow. His ride in Gaelic Warrior was quite something as well. Like that was, I was watching that on the big screen at Naas, and he'd gone well out of the big screen at that stage, the horse. And the commentary of everyone watching around was like, Jesus Christ, what's Patrick Mullins done here? Or where's this horse come from? I thought that was an extraordinary ride. So an unbelievable week for him. He had his first child there about 6 months ago or so. So if you couldn't make up the year that he's having, and it's funny, I was just reading the Phoenix there. It arrived in my door today, and they were one of the headline stories was how Patrick went to Britain to ride two horses. One was 1-8 and one was 1-6 or something, and they were all beaten. And then it ended up with, he sort of wrote after Cheltenham that there was a feeling of disappointment with the yards Cheltenham. The Phoenix arrived a couple of days too late, I think, to be honest.
Yeah, and just on that with Patrick, this is something that I wrote about in my blog as well. Like, he's 35 years of age now. He's an extremely talented guy in all ends of this. And Willie alluded to this after the National, saying, like, you know, he's the one who gets all the horses jocked up in the morning, knows every one of them, knows all their breeding and everything else. Why is he not training horses? I presume he takes over from his father eventually, but you'd have to think that must be relatively imminent if he's hanging around, because surely he could have a little satellite yard on his own here with 50 grade 1 horses in it. What do you think, Emma?
I'd say he's probably a massive part of the reason why Willie's able to be so successful with such a massive team of horses, because, you know, how many horses does Willie train? He's ran, I'd say, nearly 300 individual horses this year. I mean, it wouldn't be too far off it anyway. And like, you need to have lads like Patrick and David Casey and Ruby Walsh in and around the yard every day. And I suppose Patrick as well this year is trying to, I think he's got the kind of amateur title sewn up in the UK, and I think he's attempting to ride a winner at every UK track as well. So maybe he's just taking a few things off his own bucket list before he goes down that route. Look, obviously Willie won't be around forever. You'd imagine Patrick's kind of just waiting in the wings to take over the mantle at Clough Sutton. And yeah, I kind of echo what Johnny said. Like, anyone who has spoken to Patrick, like, he's a really, really impressive guy. Obviously, very talented horseman as well. And yeah, I'd say it won't be too far down the line where we see a PW Mullins on the race card as a trainer rather than a rider.
I think really his setup's quite, like, he has a nice life as it is now, and training horses, whatever you think about it, there's so much strain involved. You know, it's really, really pressurized, and he is able still to ride all these really good horses at the top festivals, and the life that he has, and as well as the fact that he's a father now. I would say he's happy with his lot, and I imagine he I've often commented on the top sort of flat trainers, that there were a scatter of top trainers in the flat who, as they were getting on, and still is the case really, like with the likes of John Ox, Kevin Prendergast, there was Jim Bolger, there just wasn't an heir apparent. With Willie, there is an heir apparent, but I don't think Willie is slowing down. That's the mad thing.
Yeah, the other thing is, I see Willie, I think he rode Wither or Witch to win the Cheltenham bumper when he was 40. So that gives Patrick another 5 years in the saddle if he's going to follow that trend. Jeez, he could ride some winners in the next 5 years, couldn't he? Anyway, one other thing just to note on the Grand National is, of course, it's the one race of the year where all the anti-racing folk come out and they're banging drums on social media, and they nearly had something to shout about the other day. 2 horses in the National. Obviously, Broadway Flyer took a perler of a fall with Tom Bellamy, but by all accounts, both are okay now. And then the other one was Celebra Dallin. What was interesting here was this horse was up at the pace and started to weaken from the second last, and was eventually pulled up after jumping the last. But the jockey, Michael Nolan, got 10 days for that, where the stewards decided that he was continuing when the horse had no more to give and was losing ground. And unfortunately, that horse collapsed after. He was pulled up as well, still on the course. But again, he seems to be okay. What do you make of all that on social media, Emma? It's all over the place, isn't it?
Yeah, there was a fair bit of hysteria, I suppose, after the race. And because I used to use Twitter an awful lot, I don't really use it as much as I did. I just look, I think ITV Racing had actually been criticised in the past for updating too soon on a horse, and things had turned and it ended up the horse didn't make it. I can't remember, was that after the Grand National or a different race, but I remember it fairly well. And now Saturday they were getting criticised because the updates weren't swift enough. I mean, you know, yeah, I think a media broadcaster kind of has to get the facts kind of correct before they put it out there to the public, and that's what they did. And they updated on both horses as soon as they had the correct information. I'd imagine it was great to see Broadway Boy, the updates from the Twiston Davises on social media over the last day or two. He looks a little bit sore after his fall, and it was a pity because he was just loving life, jumping out there out the front of the pack. And yeah, Celebrate Allen. I think suffered heat stroke, which, this time of year, very warm day in Aintree. I don't think there's much excuse for the jockey to continue in that situation. It's kind of something that I suppose young riders will be getting told all the way up their career. If the horse is struggling, you have to pull him up, and especially in a race like the Grand National, when a horse has been going for such a long distance, real straining on them. If he's getting tired, I think maybe you can get a rush of blood to the head, and thinking I want to finish the national, but you have to put the horse's welfare first. And got his ban. I'm sure he'll learn from it, and luckily the horse came out of it okay in the end.
Yeah, true. And just then, the other thing, of course, out of Aintree is Willie Mullins. He's after reducing the lead Dan Skelton has in the British Trainers' Championship from well over 1 million down to 120,000 it is at this stage. And of course, we've got Ayr on this weekend, the Scottish Grand National and the Scottish Champion Hurdle, both this weekend. Willie has a host of entries in them. Can he win this again, Johnny, after his what would you say? He was the first man last season to do it since Vincent O'Brien in the 1950s to win a British Trainers' Championship when based in Ireland.
Yeah, he's given himself a fighting chance, and it's added the title is a bit title races are a bit weird in racing, where I suppose in football, like every week or so, you're kind of nearly update. They're 2 or 3 points clear. And in this, it's kind of not really talked about until sort of the closing stages. When, oh God, Willie's had all this prize money in the national, so he's going to throw the kitchen sink at it now. And it's not something I'm overly interested in, but he definitely can give it a good go. And it's added a lot to the season late on that Willie send these horses over as well. And Patrick obviously trying to ride a winner at every track there. Just on the welfare issue, like the horse being ridden out when he's basically legless, I'd have some sympathy for the rider in the sense that there's prize money a long way back, maybe to 10th, but that's a rule that's absolutely fair, because a horse who you feel has literally no more to give shouldn't really be asked to jump the last and stuff like that. Now, I didn't ride a horse for 4 miles over the Grand National on a warm day, so the jockey himself, he might be getting tired mentally as well, but I think that's a good rule. But the BBC sort of reporting on the horse that fell in the national going home and all of that, they'd probably be more inclined to do a story on a horse falling in the Grand National and going home than they would on somebody winning the Oaks. Do you know what I mean? That's the way the BBC has gone. So I want to quote Pat O'Donnell. He did an interview with Colin Greaves in the race in the Racing Post there a few months ago. I thought it was brilliant kind of line that he was talking about where this was going. And he said the focus on racing at the moment is a malaise that is affecting general society, left versus right, vegans versus meat eaters. Of course, we're going to get caught in the crossfire, but I have a big problem with radio and television presenters coming on and telling us an animal has died and sending out condolences. What language do you use when my father dies? Where do you go after that? English racing needs to be careful. It's not walking into oblivion. I think he's absolutely hit the nail on the head there. And racing in Britain is still so wrapped up in insecurity about people who have no interest in it, what their views are on it. And now, thankfully, the Grand National was grand this year in respect to fatalities, but it's still a major issue in terms of the PR kind of hysteria that British racing is wrapped up in.
Yeah, including the fact that they wouldn't let Mr. Incredible run in the race either because he'd refused a few times in the past. Make you wonder about the likes of Constitution Hill. He's after falling twice in a row. Will they let him run again the next time?
I don't know. I think the Mr. Incredible thing was the right thing to do, to be honest. The horse looks well sick of racing. He pulled himself up after, I can't remember where he ran, but geez, you very rarely see a horse pulling himself up like that. If anyone hadn't seen it, he's a horse who's well past it. I can see why they wouldn't leave a horse run like that, but I totally agree with Johnny. I think the hysteria that's been built up around British media, they're making it too much now. Obviously, have to emphasize how much the horse is cared for, but it's kind of more the headline now than the winner was, which is a bit strange.
There was an article in one of the papers at the weekend about chickens being reared for slaughter in Britain now, I think, after 50 days rather than 25 days. So this is an actual animal rights issue. But the Constitution Hill thing, Vinny, you mentioned there, I can never remember a horse at such a short price in 2 hurdle races in succession falling. And nearly falling in the race before, and your blog touches on it. It's really extraordinary stuff. And I'm not one to criticize jockeys at all, but there has to be some scrutiny on the rider here, I would have thought.
Yeah, I don't know myself. I think he's just a horse he's a brilliant talent. and he's just taking a chance. Is what I think he's doing. I think he's just seen it a different way to the rest of us. The horse himself, that's the problem, and he's used to flicking the top of a hurdle, and he's flicked the top the last twice, and he's come down. That's my version of it. What did you make of it, Emma?
I think you can criticise Nico for what unfolded before he fell. I don't think you can really criticise him for the fall myself personally, because if you watch back the replay, he actually did ask him to shorten up and the horse just took off and flew. So no one's saying that geldings are a bit more stupid than mares, and I'd say it's a little bit true of Constitution Hill. You'd think he would have learned from that fall in Cheltenham. And maybe even a little bit careful around Aintree, but he let fly as well at one down the back, and Woodoo actually went with him that time. She was lucky to stay up, but I thought Danny Gilligan kind of gave Nico a bit of a lesson coming around the home bend there. He kind of spotted that he might be able to box him in on Woodoo, and he made the move. And he had nowhere to go for a long time, Nico. To be honest, I don't know. Maybe I might be wrong, but I thought he looked beaten anyway before he fell. It was interesting. I actually saw Willie Mullins getting interviewed before the race, and he was questioning where would the trip even suit Constitution Hill. Look, he came down. That happened. He probably had a bit left the fact that he let himself fly like he did at the hurdle, like it wasn't a third fall or anything like that. But to be honest, I think the mare probably had him covered anyway. But I don't think it was Nico's best moment coming around the bottom turn. Now I wouldn't really put much blame on him for the fall though myself.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, you talk about mares being a bit clever. He had Lossiemouth goes and falls in Leopardstown, and then goes and wins in Cheltenham, and wins again, of course, at Aintree. So she learned her lesson. What about other ones from there? Jonbon, 10 Grade 1 wins. He's going to be one of the all-time greats at this stage. Johnny, is he?
I don't know about that, to be honest. Like, actually, on the hurdlers there, like Constitution Hill, Lossiemouth, and Stateman having like 4 falls between them from their last 6 races, 7 races, something like that. Just incredible stuff. Like, hurdlers don't fall. Like, this is the whole point. They don't fall, particularly at the top level, and they're all at it these days. Jonbon obviously didn't fall at Cheltenham, but he all but fell, and he did extraordinarily well to finish second as he did. I'm not sure I'd call him one of the greats, because like he's never looked a superstar to me, really, Jonbon. I remember like Constitution Hill beat him by about 20 lengths in a Supreme. But Jesus Christ, like when you compare him to Douvan, his brother, like in terms of one being so brittle and the longevity of the other, like he's a dream of a horse to own. And like I'd say 99 times out of 100, Ellen, that might be an exaggeration, when you pay these extortionate fees for horses that are ready made, be it out of a point to point, or be it like, say, O'Connor, who's in the middle of his career or at the start of his career, when an owner who's a lot of money pays this ridiculous money, they pretty much never ever return on the investment. And Jonbon has done it, and over and again, and like he must be one of the most likable horses. Like, he never seems to really run a bad race. And I thought at Cheltenham, like, he deserves so much credit for running on the way he did after an absolute mess of a race from the tape. And you can see how Nico was so pissed off afterwards. That race was a complete calamity for him. Still finished second, and then to come back to Aintree, like he's an incredible racehorse. I wouldn't call him one of the greats now. In terms of, you know, the 2 mile division, would he be one of the greats if they were all around? Maybe not, but Jesus, he's certainly one of the most one of the toughest horses at the top level of steeplechasing I've ever seen.
Yeah, the other thing, of course, is when he was bought at public sale by JP, he was the dearest horse ever bought. I think at the time I thought he could never get the money back. He's got it back in spades. Sure, he's a cash machine at this stage. And then the other one is Caldwell Potter. I'm sure everyone thought that he was the worst boy in history. Now it looks like they stole him. Unbelievable. What could he win yet? He looks made for a King George. I've never seen a horse jump as well at Aintree. He was absolutely pinging his fences. He'd love that King George flat track around Kempton. He could win that for the next 3 or 4 years, I'd say. Never mind Ryanair chases, or even if he gets to the Gold Cup standard. What do you make of him, Emma?
Yeah, I'd say they probably don't mind too much paying what they paid now for a Cheltenham Festival winner in Aintree. There's probably plenty of people who probably would pay it, and a little bit more to have a winner at both big festivals, albeit one was a handicap. But yeah, it looks like a horse who maybe definitely was written off a bit too early. Whether now he'll be like to the level of a Gold Cup or anything, I'm not sure. But yeah, he seems to brilliant jump. Like you said, the King George could be made for him, and Paul Nicholls kind of bouncing back, I suppose, after a bit of a quiet season at the big festivals. Anyway, I suppose didn't have much at Cheltenham and things like that, but had a decent entry. And yeah, this Caldwell Potter, like, probably won't be too many more mentions of that big price tag now, because in fairness, even though I'm not sure how much prize money he's won, like I said, for those 2 big festival wins, for wealthy owners, I'm sure they don't mind paying it now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Paul Nichols has been very refreshing as well, Vinny, on like talking about like I mean, he's probably not everyone's cup of tea, but I just find him very entertaining, Paul Nichols, because he doesn't have much of a filter when he's talking about like people's views on horses or horse in general. And like I noticed this as well in Ireland. There were so many people were so quick to jump on the you know, basically kicking him while he was on the floor of the horse when he was suffering these, you know, short price defeats, considering the fact that he wasn't running badly and he probably hadn't had his ground, or it turns out his trip. But like that, now I wouldn't go overboard about the race the other day because it kind of fell apart a bit. Jeez, he showed a great attitude and he's a fantastic jumper. Like, and as Emma says, like these lads spend $750,000 for a horse between 4 of them, whatever, with the money they have, and some of them at an advanced stage. Some of them obviously already haven't passed away at this stage of their lives. They don't care about that. But this horse is like, he's a proper 3-mile prospect going forward who's only really getting going and still probably will be better on soft ground, I think. So I'd say Paul Nichols got an almighty kick out of, if he were prone to like a drunken kind of few nights or few hours on Twitter that night of the race, I'd say he would have taken aim at an awful lot of people knocking the horse, because he showed a brilliant attitude.
Yeah, he gets very emotional, doesn't he, watching his races? He really does roar them home, which is great to see.
He needs to source a better class of horse, Vinny. Like, this is he needs to source. For Paul Nichols should be training more horses than he is relative to Willie Mullins that are of that standard, if that makes sense.
I know, but you look at how do you get them is the problem, isn't it? That's the thing, isn't it? You can pay whatever you like for them. They don't turn. You can't be guaranteed success unless you're Willie Mullins. That's the only way it seems to be at the minute. Anyway, anything else catch your eye from Aintree, Emma?
Sure, geez, there was loads of big performances. I thought Charlene winning the bumper, she was fairly impressive, wasn't she? Nice to see Billy Lee as well getting the Cheltenham and Aintree double. You wouldn't see flat jockeys. I don't know, has a flat jockey ever ridden a winner in Cheltenham and Aintree in the same year? I'd say it would be a fair stat to pull out. I don't know if anyone let us know in the comments, but I would doubt it anyway. And she gave him a tough enough time. She pulled fairly hard, but looks like a filly with a bit of class. She quickened away well. And yeah, it was kind of something a bit more unusual, I suppose, seeing Paddy Toomey and Billy Lee teaming up with Aintree with a nice filly.
Yeah, and they're talking about maybe a flat campaign now is the next thing, is it?
Yeah, she might go to Punchestown possibly. I think she only had one more go to run. Like, I think there was the option of going to Leopardstown for the DRF, but then she wouldn't have been allowed to run an Aintree because there's a limit on the number of runs you can have when you go for one of those bumpers in the UK. But she can go to Punchestown now. I imagine she might get an entry for there, be it the champion or there's a grade 3 mares bumper there as well. And she's a filly who you'd imagine would be able to progress on the flat as well and go from there.
Yeah, exciting stuff for that big flat stable that you're now attached to as well. And Johnny, what caught your eye most?
At Aintree, what caught my eye the most? Charlene was very good. Maybe like to have Billy Lee gone over there. I was talking to him. He seemed to get a great kick out of it. Thought Imperi Passy did very well as well. I didn't really fancy him at all going left-handed. And the performance of Gaelic Warrior was kind of extraordinary on the day. They were sort of about it for me. But it was a really good festival to watch. I thought. The national kind of crowned it off very nicely, and one of the things that I'm never mad about with Aintree is that if horses trained for Cheltenham who just don't perform at Aintree, and there wasn't too much of that, to be fair. Horses more or less held their form. I mean, the Salvador Mundy thing, like, if you backed him at Cheltenham, you'd be like, what have I done wrong in life? Because like he smashed Romeo Coolio after drifting like an absolute barge the last year. Just maybe it was like, I don't know what it was on the day. He was a lot easier to settle for Paul Townend, but I'd probably give him as my horse to follow because he smashed Romeo Coolio on the manner of Copex de Boers doing the same at Cheltenham, and he looked, I mean, it was a mad drift at Cheltenham, whatever it was about him, and you kind of were throwing your money away that day. But I hope you stayed loyal if you backed him at Cheltenham, because it wouldn't have been easy to think he would have reversed the form of Romeo Coolio.
Yeah, he's been a talking horse for about 2 years. That Salvador Mundy supposed to be the next coming, and then we never saw it. And now all of a sudden, maybe he is in the category of some of the good horses in Willie's, or the best of Willie's. What about you, Emma? Did you find a horse to follow from last week?
Yeah, I'm going to be a bit biased. Like you said, I'm kind of attached to the Toomey yard now, and I was in Cork yesterday, and I'm going to go for one that didn't win. I thought Bubblegum was really impressed, but she won the Noblesse. But we had a filly in the maiden on the day, 7 furlong fillies maiden, Looked kind of a competitive old race. Dermot Wells filly won it. She had a bit of experience under her belt, and Ger Lyons had a very well bred filly for Jonbon as well, second. But Nay, she was third. I think. Yeah, Ian Rush, the footballer, ex-footballer, plenty of Liverpool fans will know him. I'm not sure has he had many horses in training, but he's involved in this one with Michael Ryan. And I thought she showed plenty on her debut. She maybe didn't break as fast as the front two in the end, but she should come on plenty for that, and she could be one to definitely follow her next start.
And you're a Liverpool fan as well. Has Ian Rush been down to visit you in the yard yet?
Not yet, no, not yet. So hopefully might get to meet him at some stage. He's definitely a legend for any Liverpool fans like myself. He was a bit before my time now, but his records all still stand there. I don't know, maybe he was at the match on Sunday instead of coming over to Cork, but definitely exciting to see him involved in racing as well, I suppose.
Great stuff, yeah. Those footballers, they all have a few quid, haven't they? Anyway, I'll give you one to follow as well. A horse called Shuffle the Deck. This is a homebred at JP McManus. It's only a 5-year-old trained by Ted Walsh. It's a full brother to Verdant Place and a full sister to Birds and the Bees, who are both been winning recently as well. But Shuffle the Deck anyway, won in Naas last Thursday, and I think this is a very good performance. This is a 3-mile chaser in the making, and it won over 2 miles. Ted is talking about possibly going to Fairy House or Punchestown ground, depending over the next couple of weeks. But
there's another one, Vinny, as well. If you're, I mean, I've said this before on the podcast. Horses who drift. Like I was racing with a mate of mine, and I mean, how can you back that? He backs it at 5-1. Like the horse was 7-4 earlier in the day and won. I mean, just won. JP McManus, massive drifter, won as it liked.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Funny old game, Johnny. That's what it is. That's why we're all still here talking about it. Anyway, thanks for all your contributions, and thanks to everyone who watched. And we will be back again next week with more of the same. Actually, I won't be back again next week. I'm going on holidays for a week, but the other two will be here. So make sure to tune in. Make sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and press a little like again this week. It'd be a big help. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.